Now, the federal government is increasingly worried about what's happening on the streets of Milwaukee and points to a toxic combination of events, including COVID, as a cause for the explosion in violent crime. I talked this week with U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Wisconsin about why that is and what the feds are doing about it.
COVID-19 is not the only outbreak ravaging Milwaukee in 2020. Something else is rapidly spreading.
I think as we look at the violent crime that's facing Milwaukee, it's everybody should be focused on this. It's off the charts.
U.S. Attorney Matthew Kruger points to a series of factors colliding in tragic fashion to cause the unprecedented number of murders.
Certainly, we think the pandemic, economic insecurity, I think reduced respect for law enforcement, and the prevalence of firearms are all contributing factors. I'd also point to drug trafficking.
Kruger estimates up to a third of violent crimes in the city also include a domestic violence component. And they're some of the toughest crimes to prosecute.
Domestic violence cases are particularly difficult because victims are often intimidated and unwilling to help support charges.
To that end, money from Operation Legend, an infusion of federal resources in fighting local crime, will fund an additional witness coordinator in the DA's office to help victims who are willing to come forward.
I can't breathe!
Amid cries from protesters to defund police, Kruger says those types of investments are important, though they must work in conjunction with, not instead of, cops on the streets.
I think we have to be really clear about this. If we don't have vigorous law enforcement as part of the solution, we won't have the opportunity to bring in jobs. We won't have the opportunity for schools to be successful if the neighborhoods are racked by gun violence. You have to have a certain level of stability for other social investments to be successful.
In terms of prosecution, Attorney Kruger said the key to federal involvement is guns. If they can dial up a criminal on a federal gun charge, that's where his office can be most aggressive. There's plenty of opportunity to do that. As Kruger told me, it's way too easy to get a gun illegally on the streets of Milwaukee. And Susan, you remember when Operation Legend was first announced, there was a lot of skepticism, even pushback from local officials. I asked Kruger about that. He said it comes from people thinking it's the federal government swooping in and trying to take over. And he said it's really more about cooperative efforts working with local law enforcement.